season?
Man, it has been a busy time, but it has been a great time. It certainly is good to have you, I think at least, back in the Magnolia State.
I am home. I've been home for about a month. It's been nice.
I think last time we talked, you were, well, I saw you in Hattiesburg not too terribly long ago, but before that, the last time we talked, you were in Italy, I believe.
Yeah.
And those trips have become more common and more popular, and you're getting pretty good at them.
Well, that's it's one of those things I never really started or tried to do. I took my family on a long trip in 2011 for about 6 months, 17 countries and 72 cities, and wrote a book
Wow.
while I was in Italy. And while my buddy Wyatt Waters and I were on the book tour, people started asking, "Man, I wish you'd take me to that butcher shop in Tuscany you wrote about, or one of those things." And you think it's people just making conversation while you sign their book, but people kept asking. So I thought, well, maybe people want me to take them to Italy. I'll do this once, and that was about 7 or 8 years ago, and 1,300 people ago. So it's been crazy.
I'm glad you mentioned Wyatt Waters. I've never, I don't think I've ever asked you about the relationship that the two of you have. Such an incredible talent, just art that is beautiful and special and unique, and all of those things rolled into one.
Yeah, he's a fine individual. He and I first started working together, I guess it was really about 2001 or 2002. We ended up doing one book, and that was that was a plan. I had an idea for a coffee table cookbook, approached him. We did it. It was way beyond what we could have ever expected as a success, and really only planned on doing one book. And then another book came. We ended up doing 4 books, and had a blast working together. And he just got back from a long trip in France with his wife, Christy, this summer. And so his gallery is filled with paintings he did all over France.
All right, so what the books that you guys have done together, Italian Palate, Southern Palate, Southern Seasons. I feel like I'm missing one. Mississippi Palate, is that the other?
That's right. That was the last one we did together, was Mississippi Palate.
And the themes are kind of what the titles would suggest?
Yeah. It's it's the cook's palate and the artist's palate kind of together. And I think it was a novel idea at the time, just doing a coffee table cookbook that had paintings. And he shares my love for Mississippi, and and also my love for the Beatles, which is really where we first connected. And so, we just had a blast working together. We hadn't done a book for a while. He and I have, I've had 2 or 3 come out since then. And actually, there's a book out now. My production partner, Anthony Thaxton, he and I have started the Institute for Southern Storytelling at Mississippi College. And we produced 2 documentaries, one on Walter Anderson, the artist from Ocean Springs, won a couple of regional Grammys Emmys on that. And then we just finished producing a documentary on Eudora Welty that was on MPB, and the companion book is out right now.
One of the great Mississippi artists, one of the great Mississippi talents, Eudora Welty, visiting with Robert St. John on the Gallo Radio Show this morning. I want to ask you about something that probably has not gotten enough conversation. We'll get to the lighter stuff with Christmas menus in just a second, but a seafood conversation on the Mississippi Gulf Coast. There have been stories about the mislabeling of shrimp and other seafood products, where they're coming from, where they are purported to be coming from. What is your take on what's going on, especially with some restaurants in coastal Mississippi?
Yeah, so I can just speak to my experience, and we've been open since 1987, so we're in our heading into our 38th year, and we specialize in seafood and Gulf seafood. And when we first opened in 1987, sheep's head was like, when I grew up on the coast fishing for sheep's head, that was like a trash fish, because really the yield isn't great with sheep's head, but I mean, we sell a ton of it nowadays. So I can't really speak to what other people are doing, but I can tell you what we do. We go through about 8 or 9 tons of fresh Gulf fin fish every year, about 18 tons of Mississippi Gulf shrimp, and I don't know how many hundreds of thousands of oysters. But I mean, I've eaten seafood all over the world, and like we were talking about earlier, I spend 4 months a year really in the area that covers most of the Mediterranean, and the seafood we get from the Mississippi Gulf Coast and these warm Gulf waters is, in my opinion, the best. So I've never had any, inkling or desire to try to get something from somewhere else. The catfish we sell comes from Mississippi. So, you've got to, I mean, if you're going to buy something from somewhere else, you got to let people know. And I know catfish is a big thing. When I was pretty active in the Mississippi Restaurant Association for a couple of decades, and all this Vietnamese catfish that comes in,
Right.
I think there are a lot, probably still a lot of places selling. They'll just say catfish, but it's coming in from other places. But I can really just speak to our restaurant, and we are 100% Gulf seafood. I mean, why wouldn't you? It's the best.
Yeah, no, I certainly agree with you, and I think, or at least I hope, that's what most restaurants on the Gulf Coast are doing. But there was kind of a concerning report that there were a lot that were not, and maybe we're purporting to be one thing, and in actuality, it was something else.
Yeah, and if they're not, I bet they are now. So if they weren't,
that's a good point.
That's
a good point.
After that, I mean, it would have been so easy. And Bobby Mahoney, I consider him a friend, and had no idea none of my really cohorts in the restaurant business. All of that was kind of a big surprise. But the thing is I mean, if you're going to sell something from somewhere else, just let people know. That's all you got to do.
One last thing, similar but not exactly the same. A lot of efforts to restore, maintain, and grow the oyster population. You talked about how many hundreds of thousands of oysters you serve. How closely do you keep up with conservation efforts that are happening in coastal Mississippi?
Big time. And the oyster problem, we had all that fresh water I think it was about 4 years ago. Just totally decimated that's one thing about, the Mississippi River. If you look at a map of the tributaries that dump into the Mississippi River, it goes from like Pennsylvania to Montana and into Canada. And so all of those waters come together, pass by New Orleans, and dump out basically in the Mississippi Sound. And it's good and bad. It's good in that a lot of those nutrients, that's why we have good redfish. That's why the crab population is really good. But when the salinity gets messed up and the levels of salinity drop, then it just wipes out oyster beds. And that's what happened about 4 years ago. So we had to start going to like Apalachicola and Texas, where the salinity was good. But it's getting better. And we're getting oysters. Pass Christian has a company called Crystal Seas, and their oysters are top notch. And I don't know the exact statistic, but I'd say it's maybe 80% back.
That's
That'd
fantastic.
be my guess.
Yeah. Hey, do you subscribe to the oysters only in our months theory?
The thing about it, shipping now and refrigeration is so good that you can still eat oysters June, July, and August. But I think they're best probably in months like right now. They're good.
I'm going to attempt something that I've never done before. I'm going to do a standing rib roast. So we used to do the traditional Thanksgiving meal again at Christmas. And then we kind of transitioned to let's do the beef tenderloin and, make it different. And my local butcher, Greg at LB, said, hey, you need to try this. So tell me how I want to use the grill. Tell me how I'm going to do this.
Well, you need to go low and slow on it.
Okay.
Season the outside great. You're basically cooking prime rib. And make sure you got a good meat thermometer so you get it to the temperature you want in the middle. But season the outside liberally, like more than you think it needs, and just go low and slow and try to maintain, I don't know, 250, 275, and just wait till you get it medium rare and go with it. We used to do our Christmas Eve. My family does big Christmas Eve.
Okay.
That's our dinner, and then we kind of do a breakfast the next morning, and that's kind of it for us. And growing up, we really my mom's and my grandmother's Christmas Eve dinner, very formal, was almost exactly like Thanksgiving. It was turkey, dressing, all the stuff. That was Christmas Eve. I
Sure.
changed it for a while, like you, Richard, and I went with a whole tenderloin, is what I would do, and different things. And now we're at the point we come back from church and communion in church, and we just do gumbo now. So we have gumbo Christmas Eve. It's a little more chill. Santa Claus isn't really putting together all the presents like he used to, so we're our thing is chill. But standing rib roast will be. That'll be nice. I may head up to Oxford there for Christmas Eve if I can zip back in time.
There you go. Well, you can do your Christmas Eve and then come Christmas morning, because we do church on Christmas Eve and then have a couple of Christmas parties that we go to, and then Christmas Day is family all day long. So Santa Claus early, good brunch, skip lunch, maybe snack a little bit, and then do kind of an early dinner on Christmas Day. Isn't it kind of cool how people's traditions are like they are what they do, but they vary a little bit from family to family, and it's kind of either what you've done always or what you've adapted to along the way.
Yeah, I think especially in a marriage, you kind of take a little of what she did and a little what we did, and kind of maybe you go with a combination of those, and then eventually, once the kids start getting older, my kids are 27, 23. We've during Thanksgiving lunch, we actually talked about it, and my son said, let's start doing gumbo again. We had done it for a couple of years, so that's what we're doing this year. And I think you create a tradition, so I guess in several years we'll be going to their house, and I'm happy if whatever they do, as long as they feed me. But that's our big thing is Christmas Eve dinner. There's an energy, even as an adult, and I'm 63 years old, there's just a certain energy in the air on Christmas Eve, even for grown-ups. And that's why that dinner was always special to me growing up. And then we kind of have a brunchy kind of thing at about 10 the next morning. Lunch is usually, well, it used to be, leftover turkey sandwiches, then leftover tenderloin sandwiches. And my family always goes to a movie. Christmas afternoon, and then that night.
There are a lot of people that do that, Robert.
Yeah, it's a big Thanksgiving Day, Christmas Day. We're movie people, and then we'll either go. We always go to dinner. It used to be Waffle House, and then sushi, and now we go to an Indian restaurant, and they're always open, and it's that's kind of a tradition too. So.
I might vote for Waffle House out of those three. I don't know. Hey, tell me about your gumbo. I am not by any stretch of the imagination anti-gumbo, but that's never been the first thing that I order on the menu. I would absolutely go with an etouffee in front of gumbo. Tell me about your gumbo and why I should be on board with that.
Well, I think it's the real deal. My mom wasn't a great cook, but there were several things that she did very well, and one of them was gumbo. And so I ate a lot of gumbo growing up, and being an hour from the coast. And my dad died when I was 6, and she knew she couldn't play football, and she knew she wasn't going to hunt, but she figured she could learn how to fish. And so she spent, I think, for $13,000, she bought a trailer and a lot and a bass boat on the Pascagoula River. So my brother and I grew up down there putting out crab traps and fishing, and so she would always make gumbo. And the key to gumbo, because if you have it really no almost north of I-20, and I'm not nothing against, I'm sure John Currents makes killer gumbo because he's from New Orleans. So I would say north of the Mississippi border, Memphis and north, a lot of times it comes out like vegetable soup.
Yeah.
And so the key is a dark roux. And you've got to get it to just before burning. Once you've burnt the roux, it's gone. And people are so scared to make roux and to get it done. And roux is nothing but flour and fat. And again, low and slow, and it just takes time. I'm talking about an hour or so at low and slow to get it really, really dark. You can do part of it in an oven, get it started, but you can't do a dark roux, really dark brown roux, and that's the key. And then it's got the Trinity. You use onions, bell pepper, celery. But I'm a seafood gumbo guy. My wife is chicken and andouille. And so there's a constant kind of battle between those. But the key, Paul Prudhomme was a master, and you talk about étouffée and Creole, and I knew him fairly well, and we had several conversations over the years. I really don't think he gets his due. That guy changed cuisine. There's a limit on redfish today because of Paul Prudhomme. I mean, nobody knew what blackened anything was before Paul Prudhomme, but his like shrimp Creole, his crawfish étouffée, and his gumbo were perfect, like the gold standard. And every time I talked to him, I would say, "Man, what is it? What is it?" I was trying to, and every time he would say, "It's stock. It's the stock. You got to make a good, rich stock." And the last time he and I had a conversation was after Katrina. It was New Year's Eve, and he was working there. He hadn't worked in the restaurant in years, and he was back there. New Orleans was devastated. There was still army on the streets and stuff. And I spoke to him that last time. I said the same thing. He got mad. I mean, he got like really mad at me. I said, "What is it?" Because I thought it's got to be something else. I said, "What is it? What is it that makes your street?" He said, "It's stock. It's stock. I've told you before, it's stock." And so the key to a good gumbo is you got to get the roux dark. If you burn it, then toss it. You got to start again.
Throw it out and start over.
You can't save a burnt roux, and then stock. Other than that, it's depending on what kind of gumbo you do.
Bubba in Starkville joins us on the C Spire text line. He says, "My mother had a gumbo stool. She would not leave the stove for over an hour while the roux was going."
Yeah. I
saw
a video the other day, an hour and 45 minutes. I can make a dark roux a lot faster than an hour and 45 minutes. But to do it right, it's going to take a while.
Yeah. I think there's only one place that I order gumbo, and that's when I'm sitting at the bar at Mr. B's, barbecue shrimp, gumbo, yaya, and French bread. And that is a meal that's going to carry me a long way.
Yeah, Ralph, the barbecue shrimp there is really good. And his gumbo is excellent. Any Brennan restaurant you'll get. But let me tell you where the best barbecue shrimp is in New Orleans.
Okay.
And Susan Spicer, who has Bayona for years and years, she has a small restaurant called Rosedale. You have to, if you were looking for it, it's hard to find. If you didn't have GPS, you'd never find it. It's in what used to be a jail on a little street called Rosedale. And the jail is actually built on the grounds that Louis Armstrong was in. The orphanage he was in was right there. So this is a very historic place. And her barbecue shrimp is like it's the gold standard for barbecue shrimp. Next time you're down there, give it a shot. So Susan Spicer
Rosedale.
And then Frank Brightson at Brightson's, his barbecue shrimp is really good as well.
For somebody that is doing a Christmas brunch, they're going to do Santa Claus, maybe have a big meal later in the day, maybe they're doing a lunch, but they're going to do something in between. What's one thing that has to be on the Christmas brunch menu?
Cheese grits.
Amen.